like to introduce to you Carl DeLuca, and Carl is with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. He's attended Wilkes University, has a BS in environmental science with a water quality concentration, and is a Penn State University master's, I think it's environmental pollution control.
Yeah, EPC
program here down at Penn State. Carl and I have go way back from the Northeast region. I think it's down in the Harrisburg area right now, but just a long, supportive person in the program here with DEP for the last 30-some years, working in water quality and now supporting the 319 program, which I'm sure he'll talk about some of the splits in the program over the years since Growing Greener. But with that, let me bring Carl up to talk about maybe the history of the program a little bit and where the funding has been going and where it's gone and where it's been for the support that they've given to us here in both that camera and whip camera for pretty much our entire existence. So with that, Carl, I appreciate it. Welcome.
Sure. Well, thank you. This works perfect from the presentation prior in here, which Dr. Weber was given. We worked with Dr. Weber and DEP in our grant system and how to improve our grant to make it easier, to make it more streamlined. And also we're looking at, and it goes with some of the numbers he was looking at, those environmental justice areas. How are we missing some of those areas? We've been finding that out. We're missing some of those areas and getting them money to fix some of those areas, which kind of works with the data that he was showing. And just to back up a little bit on that, we're finding that those areas are missing what I call a champion, someone that's there to sponsor them, whether it's a watershed group, municipality, a township, or something like that. So thank you. That was a good presentation, and I think that worked hand in hand with some of the stuff we're doing. But we're making some changes. We already made some changes, which we talked about earlier, and moving from there. But so you got a quick introduction on what I do, where I came from. I'm with Pennsylvania DEP a little over 31 years now, and that's as a full-time person. I was there for 2 years in BAMR as an intern when I was at Wilkes. So for 2 years, I worked with in the BAMR out of the Wilkes-Barre office, doing work on mine reclamation, cutting fills, and things of that nature. Also, I'm a biologist by trade. I used to go out and assess the streams in the Northeast. So I got to assess a lot of the streams dealing with the acid mine drainage, whether it was from sediment or a discharge from a mine pool that's coming out. So I looked at those assessments, and I did those in the Schuylkill area, Lehigh Valley, all the way up through Luzerne, going up to Susquehanna County. So in that whole Northeast section where we have a lot of the mining going on, I was part of those assessments that were going on at that point. So a little bit more background on me. Like I said, I grew up in that Northeast area just outside of Wilkes-Barre in Pittston. So I played along all these streams. I used to hang out in all those mine spoil areas, the column banks, riding my bike. And then I couldn't wait till I turned 13 and I begged for a motorcycle, a dirt bike, and man, I lived in those areas all the time. So I know where you guys are coming from and what you're dealing with. So I lived it. So when I came back, I was dirt head to toe, and my mom used to yell at me, hose me off outside. So that's some of the things that, so I'm familiar with these areas and what was going on. So I liked that when I got into the environmental field and working with that and doing some of my internship there. And so I was always in the water program in my 31 years at DEP. So whether it was in clean water, doing assessments. Now I'm in a new bureau, which is the Bureau of Watershed Restoration and Non-Point Source Management. We're a little under 5 years old. And this change occurred a few times. Clean water, the non-point source was in, then they split it out in a reorg, then they split it out again in another reorg, and now we became a whole bureau. So our bureau contains all the grant programs. So the 319, Growing Greener, CAP grants. So that all falls under my team. Step back. I'm a newly director of this program. About a year ago, I became the director. So Jill Whitcomb is my boss, so I filled in for what Jill took on the deputy secretary of water program. So now I'm the director here. But anyway, so the grant programs are under me. County conservation districts are under me statewide. So they're under me. All the agriculture compliance statewide. So ag compliance dealing with me. So any referrals that come from either the counties or coming from the regional office come to our program. We handle the compliance and the ag compliance. The Chesapeake Bay program is under me. So the Bay program is a whole, we have two divisions, but I call them teams. I don't like divisions because that's dividing people. So we're trying to keep crossover talks. So our other team is the Chesapeake Bay program. And a lot of our data and all of our BMPs in the Bay and through 319 and the Growing Greener grants are collected in a program called Practice Keeper. Practice Keeper is our data keeper that we use to put all the BMPs in, that in turn talks to EPA and the CAST model. CAST is the model that they used that we have to use to get credit for what's being done out there. So that's a little bit of a background on how that works and what our program does. But so that's what I wanted to make sure I hit on those topics at that point. Next. So grant talk. I want to go over some of our what we're going to talk about here. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Environmental Stewardship Fund, ESF. I'm not sure how many are familiar with that, but a lot of that got started with the tipping fees at landfills. So that goes into that. We have some of the Marcellus Shale fees go into that. And at times, they use the personal income tax. If it needs to cover something, it's not always going into that, but that's kind of the money that goes into that. And there is a kind of a line item on the state budget that feeds that Environmental Stewardship Fund. But that's where our grants come from, just so you know that. So we'll touch base on some of those grants there, which is the CAP, County Water Action Plan, and Growing Greener. Then on the federal side, the non-point source, we have the federal 319 program. So that's section 319 in the federal law. That's how it got its name, 319. So that's some of the federal money that we use. And then I'm going to go over some success stories related to the mining. And then we have a grant viewer. I'm going to show you where you can find the data now. We worked with We Conserve to organize all the data. Right now we have all the data back to 2012 in there, and we're going to go back further. So we're trying to get as much data that we have in there, and it's a collaboration because DCNR has their projects in there. So you could sort the data by program, 319 CAP or Growing Greener, DCNR's programs that they have, rails to trails and things like that. So you could sort the data that way, or you could just take all the data that's in a certain municipality or township or even a county and put it there. This was done when I first took this job. I was going over to a lot of the meetings at the Capitol where the politicians, and they wanted easier access on how could they see what's being done in their backyard. And that even goes true for some of the watershed groups. They want to see what has happened, where are these projects at? So this grant viewer helps you get to that point and you know, so you could see what's been done either on a stream within your township or your county. They're even in there by political boundaries. And it does work on your cell phone. That was one of the things I wanted it to do, is because a lot of the politicians are at a meeting and they have their cell phones with you, so you could quickly look up certain things via your cell phone. And I got to say 90, maybe even 99% of the people have cell phones these days, so it's easy to access that information. Okay, the WIP. So I'm just going to go over 1 year right now. The WIP is a watershed implementation plan. So this handles a lot with the Growing Greener projects, 319 projects, and that we're getting done. There's a WIP, so there's a plan for that watershed, and then that plan generates projects under that they're going to get funded through the grants. So we have. So what I'm concentrating on now is most of the mining or AMD type of sites that I want to mention here today. So some of the things on the first bullet item is over the life of the mining lands, we reclaim the reclamation programs. So 34,000 acres, a little over 34,000 acres, has been reclaimed since then. And then more than 200 miles of streams have been restored. So that's some of where this money's going to. So we're restoring things like that. And I'm going to take one more step back because Bob asked me earlier. Growing Greener started in 1999, right? So it's been around a little over 25 years. And I think F camera and web camera started, what are they, back in 96, 97?
96, 97 for us.
85. So there was other funding of somehow that was generated. At this point, I'm not sure. I didn't go back that far to look, but some of the money. So then it seemed the importance, and you're going to see the importance of how far Growing Greener goes, the type of projects we get in, what's being asked for, and what's getting paid for. So and just to expand a little bit more on that, we're also looking at some universities are looking into how can we expand the environmental stewardship fund? How can we get more money into that fund to get more projects on the ground done, because we're showing it's beneficial. So the flagship is Growing Greener. It's been around since the 1999. So that's kind of generating that. And then the cap money comes from the Growing Greener under the Environmental Stewardship Fund. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of connections in that, just to take that step back. But back to these WIP milestones. So now this is only in 2024 WIP that's going on. So approximately 50 acres of wetlands were restored in that time frame. We awarded $396 million. So there's money being thrown at these projects, reducing, emissions. So in that third bullet item, rise. So we're looking at any emissions that were being, through the grants initiatives, whether they're small, medium, or large scale projects. So some of that was being done at that point. DCNR, with all their planting that was being done, that they plant either riparian zones or they're planting on some of these restored areas to get a forest to put back on these sites. And then we have REAP is another program that we started using money's being thrown in there. And then, you're getting credits on these cover crop areas on farms. So this is the type of money that's being thrown at projects that are available out there and to be used. So to continue with some of these highlights. So we received 155 applications in Growing Greener for $44 million. Growing Greener, and this is just the 2024 round, we were able to award a little over 15 million, 80 total projects, and Growing Greener we awarded 45 totaling $8,000 in the Bay. So then out of those 80, 45 were within the Bay to go through to throw money there. And then, so 48 grants totaling, another 8.5 million throughout the rest of Pennsylvania. So these are the type of things that are going on. So next bullet, the DEP in 319, we received 12 applications. And some of these applications come in as Growing Greener applications, but sometimes we feel they're more fit in 319 just because of what they're addressing, and they'll probably score better in that section as we put them over there. So we have this comes from EPA, so we get a little over 5 million there. So we had 9 applications totaling, 3.6 million, and this is being recommended. And then in a total of another 3.6 million we awarded that. So then 1 million of DEP projects that DEP used, that we put in from our line item, from our state funds to match some of that money, because we have to have matching money with that. And then $10,000 of the Growing Greener, of the 319 funds have to go back to EPA for in-kind projects. So that's what they get back from each state that's in their region. So that'll be projects within EPA Region 3, which we reside in. And then the Countywide Action Plan grants, the CAP, we approved 205 projects, and the funding, and you can see some of the fundings here. And then the projects will 110,000 pounds a year of nitrogen. Again, this is just in this 1 year, and these are model numbers. 42,000 pounds of phosphorus, 11.8 million pounds of sediment. That's a good year. I mean, that's a lot being removed, and that's only within the Bay. Remember, the CAP money is only in the Bay. DEP infrastructure, this is that IIJA money, for people that are familiar with that, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. For a significant percentage of the CAP, we have funding, we with our partners, we work with them with this money. So 7 million for 2025 is coming up, so that's what we have for this year. And now that will work again till September of next year. That's the way the federal year works. And then you can see 18 million, over the entire 5-year grant. So it was a 5-year grant. Now, IIJA is on the table with the federal budgets going on, so that's under some negotiation. I'm not sure how far it's going to go. We have money still for another year of spending that we have, but that helps produce projects. Also helps fund some from staff with us, staff at the district level and things like that. So we're going to be moving, depending on how the budget's lined up, we're going to have to do some what I call moving and shaking at that point on where things are going to land. Okay, how we work together to succeed. So this is one of the main reasons why we became a new bureau. We're not a permitting, we're not a compliance section, even though I have ag compliance under me. Most of our dealing is with partners and getting the money out to the partners. And that was some of the stuff that we were talking with University of Pittsburgh. How do we get that money out there faster? How do we get them out there to viable projects that need to get done, that are going to show results in the modeling, that appeases EPA and what we have going on there, and then improves the waters in your backyard. I mean, again, we're looking at how the water's in your backyard, whether you're going to stay in your backyard or not. So that's the type of money that's being spent here. So our core team, we have 40 people in my bureau. So we have, and it's plus or minus, because we work with, some of my staff are in regional offices too. So we're statewide, even though I have a core of probably about 20 in central office in Harrisburg, and then we're spread out across the state so we could be in tune with what's going on in those regions. And then we deal with 34 counties, and 30 are within the CAP, and we have one regional plan. So we have about 1,200 plus partners that are directly or indirectly involved with this money and our program. 18 clean water coordinators. So some are private consultants that we have, some are county planners. So these are county consultants. So this is, again, how do we get the money to your backyard? Let's get someone in your backyard that we could pay for with this money that could be, again, your champion that's there. We need that champion to help weed things out, find these projects, and let's get them done and fight for the money that we have, because they're competitive grants. And then there's 13 municipalities are engaged with it, 90 plus nonprofits. So this is what we're hitting with this money in this program. 130 consultants and contractors engaged. We have anywhere from our team building, training, conservation district, to get them all up to par so we could get things done and get things done in a timely manner. And then 170 landowners. We have individual landowners that are large tract landowners, and getting involved with the with our team and getting money on the ground and projects that they want. So private and public entities, we have 20 plus serving the state that are on our statewide action leader support. And there's people in this room that are on some of these state action teams. Some of our clean water coordinators are involved with these teams and are able to get on these teams. And then data reporting, we have about 48 data reporting entities. So, and that's the key part with Practice Keeper, how we gathering this information. So we need to get those people that are out there doing the work, reviewing the work, confirming that it was done correctly and on the ground, and getting that into the system so we could get credit for it. There's a lot of areas that we're still missing that we're not getting credit for. And to expand a little bit on that, mining is one of them. So we're looking at that. So one of the statewide action team leaders, we're looking at how can we better get some of the mining projects that are done on the system. I mean, some of these mine sites, these streams are void of any type of life. Okay, so let's stop what we call the orange water, which is the easiest thing to see because it's visual. So you stop that, but there's still no life in this stream. Well, if we start reclaiming this land, restoring it, and getting it back to normal, it starts cleaning up on the watershed side. The stream starts cleaning up, but that stream is still starved of like nutrients and life to try to get back. So if we start, to bring back the grass, the trees, and all that on the landscape, we start applying, some of our nutrients in different ways that we have. So you're going to get an uptake there. You're going to get different nutrients making it to the stream because that stream's hungry for that. So that nutrients is not just flowing down the stream. That stream's using that to come back to life, to reproduce its life. Now we're going to get bugs back in there. You get the invertebrates back there because you're going to have a food source that's there. So that's how the life starts. It's on a timeline. So every stream's on its own timeline when we get there. But these are the type of things that are going to take place by restoring these areas to make it aesthetically better and cleaner water for all of us from upstream all the way downstream where that water's going. Okay, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the CAP program. I'm going to show you some numbers that we have. So you see the columns up there, projects applied. So, and you can see the description on it. This represents application period. So when we first started CAP, they were in 2-year increments because the amount of money that was in there, and we wanted to get the money out, and it was something new. So we need to get everybody introduced and how to get it in there. So grantees will submit applications every fall. So that's in the fall. So this is going to be opening up soon for this year. So you're going to see that coming in soon. So then the next one is amount requested. So that's the total amount requested, for the applications that came in for the CAP. And then the third column is that this reflects the total amount of all projects listed in each grantee's application during every CAP round, so that you can see where we are there. So we awarded $82.5 million, but look at what the needs were. I mean, so we show the needs. I mean, look, 300, almost 340 million is in needs there. So that's why we want to try to expand this program, keep getting money put into it because of where things are going. So I wanted to show some of that, but you can see the amount of applications that are coming in over that time frame. So like we first started, we only had 10 applications. So it was a short year. It's a new program. People weren't familiar with it. So then we started promoting it more, and then it opened up. So now we're starting to get a lot of projects coming in. And a lot of these CAP projects, how it works with Grown Greener. These CAP projects, most of them are shovel ready to be implemented, ready to be done. The hope is that you're using Grown Greener to get your design and permit. So once you get your design and permit, you come here for the implementation money. You could go to Grown Greener, but we want to go here first, especially with the agriculture sites. We want to try to get them here, or even use the ACAP money with State Conservation Committee, Conservation Service for the ag part. But for the mining, if they could get design and permitting done first, there's some available money here through CAP. CAP's been dealing with some stormwater projects, things of that nature. So they have criteria that they have to meet. To continue with the CAP, one example is this Fall Brook Restoration Project, Tioga County. So I'm not sure who's familiar with this, but this is a reclamation site that was done 30, 40 years ago. So it was done to what we think quickly. I wasn't involved with the project. I wasn't around with DEP at that time, but it was done quickly on what they had available at the time and the knowledge that was going on. So project was done. It didn't pan out as well as they thought. You know, you had areas that grass grew. You had areas grass was stunned. Then you have areas where nothing grew at all. So it was kind of like, let's just spread it all over. So then our program, through CAP money, they did a restoration project of approximately 170 acres of this previously disturbed and reclaimed area about 40 years ago. So they made it better. So they planted trees on the 170. They had some private and publicly owned land there now. So $118,000. So BMPs, mainly was trees and additional soil amendments. So that's what it was missing. These mining sites, summer to heat up, grass dies instantly if you don't have anything there to maintain water, the moisture, and to keep it growing and the nutrients there for it. So tilling in better soil conditions, DCNR also got involved, incorporated a wildflower meadow that they had for this landscape that they came up with. So you can see the partners there that was part of this. And Manfield was one of them. We worked with the universities. So CAP funding, you had almost $300,000 spent, and we have something working here now. And so 319 funding now. I'm going to go over a little bit of 319 funding. So and the numbers here, I only went back 5 years. So these are 5-year increments because CAP is only around 5 years. So I only went back 5 years in 319 related to some AMD projects. So you could see project dollars that were put in and program funds. Now program funds is staffing and administration. So some of this money went to EPCAMR and the different organizations that way to collect the data for some of their personnel they had. So this grant used to come out every 2-3 years. So that's why you see some zeros in there on that site. So the grant, that's for the life of the grant. So they would receive that, and then the total dollars spent. So this is in the last 5 years, each year what was spent, and you could see how that works out there. So I wanted to show some funding that we did with AMD sites over the last 5 years. So some success stories with 319. So Broad Top Township, Bedford County, one of our sites. So it was 319 funded. It was an AMD treatment system. The system treated 3 AMD discharges. And I have a few pictures that will show you how things look quickly. But this one, the results in the water quality. Now, this is some of the stuff that we were just talking about in the last discussion. You improved the water quality. You reduced the metals. So these metals were reduced or settled out in the settling basins. We increased the pH, improved the downstream water quality. This project actually, from the initial goals, well exceeded what the expectations were, especially on the metals and the pH. So this one worked out very nice. So I want to show a success story that we had done here. And this flows into 3 discharges into the 6-mile run. So you could see some, I don't know if the pointer shows up, does it? No. So on the left side, that was one of the discharges that were coming out of the mines at that point. And then on the right, they're not the greatest picture, but these are some pictures that we had that was shared with us from the grantee after it was reclaimed. So that was immediately after it was reclaimed on the right side, the after picture. So moving a little bit over to Growing Greener now. Growing Greener over the last 5 years. So 20 to 21, there's 2 years in that thing because 20 was the COVID year, so things were happening, things were moving slower. So we kind of did put 2 years together on that. So you can see the total amount requested. So 174 projects, you know, 55 million in that number of grants that we approved to move on to be funded because of the money where we have to draw the line. So it was about 18 million, and it involved 38 counties. So in 22, 165, you can see we're constantly about between the 160, 170 on average applications coming in. The amount of money being requested is always 40 to 50 million, maybe even 60 million at times. And then you can see the amount of money we have to give out based on what we find out a few months prior to after we do all the evaluations and scoring. How much money do we have in the account to award that year? So in 24, those are being ready to be announced. 25 opened in April, and those are being reviewed at this point. So Growing Green, if you remember, it's always kind of a year behind the system as that's going through. Okay, I want to show some of the EMD projects example. Lawberry Creek treatment we have. Just to show a couple that was being done. These are treatment systems that were set up to show a couple projects in there. And then stream impairments and CAST. So I want to go over to some of the CAST stuff. CAST is the model again that we have to use. So AMD, 5,000 miles of streams impaired in Pennsylvania, 1,800 of those in PA, portion of Chesapeake Bay. So that's what's within the bay. 402 miles of stream impairment remediated statewide, 174 miles restored. DEP attempted to gain credit, and this is what I was telling you earlier, the credit we want to gain in the mining section. We're much closer now in the meeting I just had in about 2 weeks with EPA. They're looking at that, and our data is showing data that's different than what they have. So they're at the table discussing that. That would be a big get for us and for this mining community. Stream ecosystems, back to life following AMD with all the remediations. Living streams, like we discussed earlier, they're consuming the nutrients to fuel the ecosystem, to regenerate it, and the stream metabolizes, the nutrients that it gets. So I promised I was going to talk about where the data is. So some transparency. My bureau is working with DCNR and We Conserve PA. We Conserve PA is the one that's the builder of this map. And it's an interactive map to show projects. Every year we do a data dump on November 1st, and usually by January 1st to mid-January, the data is up and in the system and available to be looked at. These are only completed projects. So these are all the completed projects in there. So you're not gonna see a project that's halfway done or not completed. Once it's deemed complete and the final report's in, it gets into the system. So you can see all completed projects that are in there. So that would be it's an interactive map if you click on it, but I don't want to click on it here because we won't be able to go through that. But it's on our webpage, my bureau webpage. You can find it on the bottom right-hand side when you go to the ESF funding. So that's where you can see that interactive map. But they're all in there. Environmental stewardship, you can pull that one up, and all the grants in environmental stewardships are in there. You could separate it into just DCNR projects. You could call out just Growing Greener, just the countywide action plans, or you could do it in reverse. You could pull up a municipality, a township, or you could pull it up by the county. So I wanted to make sure I got that in there at that point. So other than that, I think I'm on time, right? It's only between a couple questions and getting to the bar at this point, right? I'm open for any questions or comments that anybody might have.
How do you increase grant funding? The way that I looked at it was people apply for grants, but then a lot of the money that they may try to receive doesn't really come to them. How do you increase those applications so that you have more spending money to be donated / granted to you?
Well, that's what we're looking at. We have, there's through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, we're looking at, they have two different universities looking at our ESF funds. How can we increase the funds in there, whether it's in the line item in the state budget or with the tipping fees, or are there anything else that we could put in there? Because we definitely show, even in Growing Green, over the last 25 years, there's a greater demand and projects than what the money's there. And it's almost like a 4 times the amount. So if we could at least increase it one more time, just so we could get twice the amount of projects done, that's our hope. That's what we're hoping to do. And that's what we're working with the different politicians and different agencies on how can we increase those funds.
Do you have a strategy?
Well, we're working on trying to finalize that strategy. We're putting a strategy together on what we could do. We're into brainstorming. We only had 2 meetings so far with that, and we're looking. What's holding us up is what's the budget getting approved. So the meetings aren't happening at this point. So the last few meetings haven't happened. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it being here. Thank you.